Hello.
Party time.
Yeah. It's good to be back. It's good to be
Yes, sir. I even started this time. I have a notebook and I can like make notes of questions that come up, so I don't just like think about them and then lose it, lose track of what you're saying and things. And one thing that the only thing that I have on here to start with is let's jump right in and talk about the tarot a little bit.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, it's the loose theme here, but in that first episode, you said something like, you said the Tower card is basically like when you're cast out of a group.
Yeah.
I didn't really get what you meant at first. But now I think I do. Like, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I had to think about that again a few times because it's so there's a few different things that I want to like pass on and sort of like clarify from my perspective. So the tarot card, so one is okay, it depends which way we look at it. So if we look at it from this perspective, the Tower card is basically like, you say you're born into one culture or society, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you start forming as you grow up, as you go through your teenage years and you young adult into a man or a woman, you build up a perspective of the world, right? So some of the things that can be included in that perspective is your natural genetics, so the story that you get from that is passed down to you through your bloodline, and so that's how your body functions, how you might perceive things, as well as the current environment that you grow up in, right? And how you've interrelated with people, events that have happened, how you reacted to them, what you unconsciously left there. So like things, so when you're a child, events just happen, but you're not sort of cognitive of those things. You just kind of like keep flowing through, right? But like say a traumatic experience happens, you sort of, the trauma just sort of can get laden in the background, can go into the, go into your subconscious being, right? Into the depths. So it doesn't affect you depending on how big the trauma is, but also everyone's different. Some people react to like scraping their knee and they take that trauma into their whole adult life. Like I scraped my knee one time, but the Tower
walking
card,
is so dangerous, and it'll blow up to the whole thing, and the world's out to get
so the Tower card is really when your external projections of reality come crashing down. So the world that you've built up has come crashing down. And it really, for me, because I can only see from my perspective, but for me, it's like, it can be said. So I was reading a lot about like shamanic cultures and stuff like this, and it might not be as bad as a shamanic like death, but it's where sort of your whole worldview and how you relate to people and events that happen, how you relate to the events emotionally, physically, instinctively.
Recording in progress. Okay, so we're talking about Marduk, and he went into the woods.
Yeah, so Marduk, he was born in the jungle, so he's like a wild man.
In the tower, yeah.
And so this goddess went and found him and said, "Oh, you're going to be the new king," or whatever. And Marduk's like, "Why?" He's like, "I like all the animals." But at the same time, because he never seen a woman before, he was like, "Oh wow, she's so beautiful,"
It's like, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like I forget how the rest of the story goes, but like they get into the tower, and then there was like this other the red woman, and she was like they called her like a whore or whatever. And
Oh, Azora. Yeah. Okay.
and so she was gonna betray him, but at the final moment, like she was meant to betray him, so she was paid by the king or something like this to betray him and lead him out. But anyway, at the end of it, she falls in love with him and then goes on his side, and then they overcome the king, right? The evil king, and then Marduk becomes like the most virtuous ruler for who knows how long.
Yeah.
And then the story of Shamash and Tiamat. Tiamat is the ocean goddess, and she was disliked what was happening on the planet, and so she was going to kill everyone. Um, and then so Shamash is a reincarnating deity. So Shamash and Tiamat keep coming back over and over again. So Shamash's role is to like stop Tiamat, but in the Enuma Elish, he like has to battle her and like slay her, and then like the whole world becomes good again.
So this is kind of like a Shiva. Do you see this as sort of like a Shiva archetype or whatever?
Yeah, it's like so it's like a solar archetype. So it kind of is like the Tiamat. So you could say Tiamat is like the world, or
The world in
like
the tarot, or just the world?
yeah, the world, you could say the world in the tarot.
Yeah.
But also it's like got to do with the moon and stuff like that, right? And then Shamash is like the sun. So it's like the moon and the sun, but they control the fabric of reality, sort of thing, you know. And so
Mm,
Shamash comes back, reincarnates every time, because in the story, Shamash dies, but then he reincarnates again, and he's stuck in this continuous loop of reincarnation.
mm,
And then he was like promised by some gods, the gods, that they would help him like get out of this the consistent cycle of reincarnation. Now, so with the tower card, it's like the false or small reality. So we have like different levels of reality, I'm guessing, right? So we've got like this, and as you're progressing more and more deeper and deeper into like yourself, and you're like becoming more illumined, you'll have a larger world view. You know, some things have to go. Now what happens though is like if there's some real deep-seated things, and it can happen with timing, it just happens with timing, that are really not like in the best interests of the person, the individual, or the community, or the larger society, or whatever, then tower moments will happen
mm.
where the impact. So like, you know, in a bigger society, well, 9/11 was a perfect tower moment playing out in real life.
Right.
um Very traumatic, but it made people see the world in a new light. Not sure if it was the best way to go, like just blaming every like immediately attacking the other people.
Yeah. Yeah, there
That's
was
very
that. There was like that moment, like, for the first 24 hours after 9/11, there was like this where everyone was just like, oh my gosh, America, our hearts go out to you. And there was like this moment where we could have taken a path, it was just like, oh, it was this, like, there was this beautiful path there. And then instead he gets out, the day after at a microphone and it's like,
we need to
call,
kill them all and
yeah,
steal
you
their
just like,
oil.
all right, time for a blood feud. And, like it was, I remember that was just being so depressing, that moment where it was like, oh, all right, heads are going to roll for random people. But like before that, and then all of a sudden, then we like, then ever since then, by we, I mean, America in general, it's like, we've been the bad guys ever since that moment where we just chose like the path of vengeance. But remember, I just
Yeah,
remember that day where everyone's like, oh, everyone's, all of the countries were like so on board. It was like, yeah, there was a real kind of opportunity there. I mean, forgive me for saying so if people find that offensive, but
oh no, dude, that, I feel the same way. One thing, I was 14 at the time, 13, and it I was a bit mad actually because it interrupted my Dragon Ball Z time.
Oh,
before school. And it was really strange because at school, everyone was like, oh, I'm ready to go to war and all this and stuff like that. And then I was like, why? I was like, they've been causing so much harm in their country for the last 30 years. Like, do you expect, like, if your home was invaded for 30 years, and you've been used as tools and weaponized and all these things, that you wouldn't have trauma and want to attack? Like, it's just common sense. Like,
yeah. And then like someone's gonna come in and like kick your brother's like stomp your brother's face in, and then that's gonna resolve the issue. You're gonna be like,
yeah,
whoops, you know, like it was the
it's
yeah,
just a continuous cycle of violence,
yeah.
Um, and but that was, you're right, that was a perfect tower moment, and some people got illuminated, like yourself. You're like, wow, we can choose a different way here. And then you're
Yeah.
like, oh no, monkeys.
Yep. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. I was a freshman in college. And so like, you know, you're kind of whatever that marked that era. But you know, one other
Yeah.
thing I was thinking about in particular, like being cast out of a group, you know,
Mm,
so normally it's not like just your that I mean, I guess that's just a point of view I hadn't seen it through. But it is the
yeah.
same thing because like if you have an expanded worldview all of a sudden, you know, if all of a sudden you identify with any kind of a larger boundary,
Yeah.
um, then like then that's your moment because all of a sudden like that's a tower moment no matter what it is,
And
even if it's something like, oh, you know what, I was the moderator on the Star Wars Discord
yeah,
or Reddit or something.
yeah,
And then I watched Star Trek, and you know what? I like it too. Like, in if that happens, that's like, you know, that's like a small example of that because all of a sudden
yeah,
your community is going to be like, you you traitor, you know.
yeah. You sell out. How
But like,
dare
but for
you?
you, you're just like, oh, guys, like, you know, I didn't leave anything behind. I just, you
You
know,
gained.
I have a there's just a new dimension that I'm seeing now, and then all of a sudden you're an outcast for that, you know. If you get
Yes, and
if you get any type of new knowledge or new point of view, you become an outcast for the people with, you know, for
yeah.
people in a more limited point of view, like period.
And it could also be to the lightning bolt of sudden illumination as well. It can, the tower can also represent, because it can, everything's a duality. It depends on the perspective.
Mm,
So for me, everything changed in after 2020. Everything changed a lot. Um, and it's like I couldn't relate to anybody.
mm, yeah.
And the way that my body received information as well was much different. Um, yeah, all of these things. So it's like, and so right now I've literally I had to cut myself off from so many people, because like all the information and everything that I was getting, when I would interact with people, was just so intense and like
Huh.
mind racking.
Do you mean the energy you would get from them in the sense that all of a sudden it was now discordant with your current model? So like
Well,
what before was fine, um, then those same interactions now,
yeah,
uh,
well, completely on a totally different experiential level.
yeah, now they
So
don't
it's
fit anymore.
yeah, because it was like all the things that, like, it's like my intuition ramped up so high that like it was the loudest voice in my head. So like, because before it was like, oh yeah, I'd get intuition about someone, and like I'd get a feeling, but I'd just block it off
Yeah.
and be like, eh, whatever, like it's not that bad. But then in this new way, it's like boom, all of this information like would come through. Uh everything from like um ancient stories to like their whole life story, to like how the interaction is like so bad for, you know, how where it's going to lead, how bad it is for their health, what it's doing for the rest of your life, how karma is attached to it, like all of this
Mm,
sh-
yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
would come up, and it
Like,
was like sensory overload. Yeah.
even normal social interactions, all of a sudden you're looking at too many repercussions. And like, for example, what are you talking about? Something like, oh, before I would like
Okay, let me
go
give
out to
you
the pub and meet my friends every Wednesday, but then all of a sudden on Wednesdays and I meet him at the pub, and you'd be like, oh, what's good? Is
yeah,
that
it's like the vibes, the like the vibes that are here, they're like um just the the feeling and the voices in my mind
hmm,
would um you know be like wanting me to reject all that, like reject it all.
yeah.
So let me give you an example. So this week I looked up as I did my new moon ritual thing. It was a great day, but what came up for me was like to look at my astrology chart, my natal birth chart.
Yeah.
And so I've got like black moon Lilith in my 11th house,
Which
and
which is the 11th house? What is
is the
that?
house Aquarius.
Um,
So
but I mean, like whatever the 10th house would be, like family or something, and then the first house
yeah,
is like job. What, I don't know
11,
all of it well
11.
enough. I just
So
know.
11th house is like the humanitarian, like so healthy rebellion against like systems, this type of stuff.
Hmm.
So it's the star card basically
Okay.
in the tarot.
Mm.
What connects you to everybody
And
else.
Aquarius came up in your 11th house. Is
Yeah,
that
so
okay?
11th house for me was Aquarius, and then black moon. So the zodiac, so the houses are the 12 signs of the zodiac.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wait. So I know like just enough about astrology to ask questions. So I guess I think of things like natally, like, or like, your birth,
Yeah.
as far as related to your birth. Because, like, for example, I look it up and it's like, all right, I have Saturn in my 10th house. So I thought the 10th house would just be not, the 10th house doesn't mean that it is a particular sign on the zodiac, it's a position. Is that
Yeah.
not
So
really the
because
case?
because my ascendant, so my sun sign is Aries, but my
Hmm.
ascendant sign is Cancer. So then I think all the placements, so my ascendant sign is Cancer, so that's meaning that's my first house, right? And then so the 11th sign from Cancer is, it's like one of those phone dial, those old school phone dials where you like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that type of thing. So Black
That was a
Moon
good sound
Lilith.
effect, by the way. You could like, I wish I could never make like machine gun sounds as a kid, so I'm really jealous of that. When I'd go to my buddy Derek's house and like
It's
I'd
all
be
in
like,
the
yeah, they're all in the roll tide. I'd be like, can you make machine gun noises for me for like my dude? We're playing with action figures. All right, so go ahead. Yes. Okay, so the
I love
equation.
that.
Like, I need help here, man. I can't
Yeah.
do the. Yeah. Shit. Nice.
Yeah, so like Black Moon Lilith in that one apparently is like one of the worst not one of the worst placements, but it's like one of the most harshest placements for Black Moon Lilith to be in. Because apparently it's like
It's harshest
uh
to be where? It's harshest to be in.
in the 11th house of Aquarius, or like,
Mm,
oh yeah, where
okay.
mine sits. Yeah,
Okay.
so Black Moon Lilith in the 11th house. So basically it means that I'll be misunderstood like by
Mm,
everybody.
mm, yeah.
So everyone will misunderstand me.
All right.
Uh,
I got you, buddy. Don't worry.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. So majority of people, and so that was what I always felt was like the case, that I was misunderstood by the world, but also it gives you a very like big additional rebellion streak against the system. against all authority. And so I would have natural aversion to all authority, which was
Yeah.
everything from like, I got this like new Kung Fu teacher. And then like immediately I'm like already like
Yeah.
poking holes in
I know.
what
Dude,
makes
I
people.
might, that might be where mine is. I have that same problem. I haven't like, even when I stayed at the Zen monastery, it's like, of course I had to like, throw in, I had to like bring the abbess into the thing because the guy who runs the guest program is like, just wash those windows again. It's like, all right, I get what you mean. He's like, sometimes you just got to wash the windows to wash the windows. I'm like,
Oh
yes.
no.
And I'm like, yes, but also the cleaning is important and we're in a restaurant and there's cobwebs over like your tables. So I'm like, so I really want to clean that ceiling because, we've got people coming in here. And he's like,
Yeah.
but he had already said clean the windows, but we had like just done it an hour ago. I'm just like, I don't know, man. What are you?
No, he's power tripping.
Yeah, I'm like, so you want to clean? I'm like, this window is going to be cleaned 6 times a day because we do it at the end of the thing. But the cobwebs above where people are eating will never be cleaned ever. I can look at it. It's been 6 months.
Yeah.
It's like, is the work like, does there self meaning to the work? Is it worth doing? Is the work worth doing? If it's worth doing, we should clean this. So anyways, like just things like that. Yeah. And he has to like, sit down. We have to have a private talk. He's like, I don't know, you really like question my authority there. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't respect that. For one thing, I'm paying to be here. And apparently I take like the duty of cleaning this shit more seriously than you do, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
All
I'm
right.
that same way. Like, no matter what it is, I don't care. I don't care if it's like the CEO. I'll just be like, I think that's stupid. And
Yeah.
then it's very, yeah, it's a difficult way to exist, people don't respect it, it's,
but we're the ones that bring change. We bring change because
yeah.
So like on the stuff I was looking at, like some of the most so the people that they put like, the same Black Moon Lilith in the 11th house or whatever was like very famous artists.
Wait,
and so
and what's the Black Moon Lilith, by the way? Like, that's
so
not a planet.
That's a point or where the moon is. So what came to me was that's where your heaviest karma is. So that's like where your biggest job is. So for me, it was like I had very strong codependent and attachment issues with people, like with my family and people that treated me very badly. And so that was where my karma was. And so since I've cut loose all of those bonds, I've definitely like been getting a lot more, how do I say it, like just like I've been growing a lot more internally, and like the things that I'm able to like perceive now are just more on a deeper level as well, because it's like they occupied, when I had those bonds with those people, they occupied a lot of space, but they're also sending me a lot of negativity, and that negative energy creates negative. So because I cut off everything else, like my social life, everything else, nothing else was bothering me, but then I would get like all of these incredibly, like, it's like my head was like a bell and they were inside of it, like just sending tons of negativity, like inside my mind, and then so I had to physically like cut off with a physical action my bond with certain people.
Yeah. And particularly, do you think
My family?
Yeah, and authority.
Yeah. So, but what's been happening now is like, because there's no one else to rebel against, it's like I'm rebelling against myself, like, but in a way, like I'm rebelling against my like my incorrect perceptions about things, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Like there's only one ruler left now.
yeah, there's only one person left now. And so it's like, I'm rebelling against like all of my lower views of how I perceive myself and the world and stuff like that, and the actions and the relationship I have with myself and the environment around me. Because there's no one else to blame for anything. So it's like, so now, and because I watched those artists, I was like, okay, well, what's the highest form of rebellion? Where can I, because when I looked at the astrology, what came to me as well was like, that's all the energy that you're gifted with, but also where your lessons will lie in this
Mm.
lifetime. So I had some really harsh placements, like some very, very harsh placements in my astrology chart, but it's also, there's a lot of wisdom and spirituality and like,
What's your moon?
my moon's in Pisces.
Mm,
So I got my sun in Aries, my
nice. Yeah,
moon in Pisces, and
that's
my
nice.
ascendant is Cancer. So I'm like very, very, very intuitive and psychic.
Yeah. I've got I've got my moon. So here's my harsh
Yeah.
placement is that I have my moon in Capricorn. And I
Yeah.
also Capricorn is also my ascendant sign as
Yeah.
well. So it's like that's what tortures me. It's like a moon in Capricorn. you know.
Well, then you'll be good at one of yeah, so I feel with Capricorn people, because you're very like, especially if you love spirituality, because with Capricorn, they're very down to earth, down to earth. So like,
Mm,
so for you, I would suggest yeah, Taoism's good, like Qigong and stuff like that, but like
yeah.
turning the physical world into your spiritual reality. And so like connecting uh your physical actions with spiritual understanding, then that would,
Mm. I
yeah.
think that makes sense. I think that's one of the things that like draws me ultimately. Like my lodestone is always like Zen philosophy because
Mm,
it's always like the no bullshit stuff. Because like I can get wrapped up so much in any, I can get wrapped up so much in anything, and like that can stress me out to no end. But then
yeah.
in Zen, it's that flow where they're just like, no, just like keep in mind that anything outside of like belief in anything outside of the room you're in is basically heresy. And that really helps me. That really helps
Yeah.
me.
That's true. Also witchcraft would also be,
Oh,
you'd also like witchcraft, because it's all about like really, really
yeah.
cool associations. So like basically like in cooking, right? So in
Mm,
cooking, so like
yes.
I get runes. So because I got a good understanding of the runes.
Yeah.
So when I'm cooking, I bring in all of this beautiful like intention. So I'm just like, I bring in the energy of like, I'm in love. And then
Yes.
also I want strength. So I'll like imagine the Uruz rune, which is the thing for health and strength and strong body, and then I'll,
Yeah.
cook with that. So it's like, I'll, like as I'm cooking or whatever, like I'll use the stick to draw the rune into it, into my food,
Oh,
to
ooh.
bring
I
that
like that. I
energy.
don't know anything about rune working, but
Yeah.
I pick up the vibe you're putting there because like that. That's something that kind of like intuitively I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're gonna do something, you can like it's like you can mark things for skillful um, attention.
Mm.
I suppose I mean, you mark things just because like okay, this is gonna be uh, like a like in the same way if you let's say I think of something in the middle of the night like something I need to do the next day but I want to go back to bed I might like take like a book that's next to my bed and throw it in the middle of my floor
Yeah.
so I wake up the next day you're like why did I throw my book in the middle of the floor oh yeah because I wanted to remember to
That's very
pay my
practical.
electricity bill or something. But
Yeah.
really, like that kind of works as like an immediate sort of sigil or something, or root.
Yes, that's a sigil because you created a magical. Well, you created an association.
Yeah,
That's how sort of like witchcraft works. So, like for example, you want to release a bond. What they do is they get two candles, right? They get two
yeah.
candles, and then they tie some string to both ends, and then they like say
Oh,
they say a prayer. So that's like a cord that binds both of you. Then they'll like say a prayer and like say thank you for the lessons and offer healing for the other person or whatever, and to let them go. And then by watching, and then so they'll just like sit there and watch it. And then as it burns down, like a physical reaction because will happen internally, because the external is also happening internally. So
right.
it's like like you said, like a sigil, but like a living sigil. So everything's like alive and a craft. It's an external mirror of what's going on internally.
So when you talk about runes, are runes then something to where you can affix associations to?
So
Like,
they've
do you
got
have like generic like associations across different runes, and then therefore you can use that in
yeah. So
multifaceted?
how I've worked with runes. So runes are like the Norse version of the tarot, but also
Mm-hmm.
they work
Yep.
a little bit differently than the tarot, because with the Norse runes, the whole body of work and stuff with the runes, um, they're much more practical in the sense of they tell you like this is what you're doing, this is what you should do to change your fate. Rather than with tarot, it's like more like sort of like this is the energy that's going on around you, like and like if we look at the Celtic cross, these are some of the point. It's like you can't change your fate, but this
Mm,
is what's coming, up, all you can do is accept it. Whereas with the runes, it's like very much more like because they got the philosophy that you can change your fate, you can change, everything is changeable, nothing is set in stone,
mm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's supposed to be the point of the tarot as well,
Yeah,
but it's not generally, yeah, how it's like perceived,
perceived.
People are,
Yeah,
yeah, like people are very hooked up on the idea of like telling the future. Like it's
yeah,
like it's a thing that's coming,
yeah.
but, but that's like really not the point. Like it's not a thing that's coming. It's
It's just
just
their
like
interpret.
it's looking at
It's
the
like
seeds that you already planted to grow. Uh-oh. Did we lose you? Did we lose your internet again? I'm praying for him to come back. Last time we had a cut off. All right, I'm going to pause the recording here and see if we can get a connection again. All right. Is my mic? Do I need to nope, I see
no,
it being mine.
your
I
mic's
think I'm
fine.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like you froze. So I'm talking. I'm like, oh, he's gone again. But then Zoom. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. We're back.
Yeah.
All right. So runes in the Nordic. Yeah, I think that like the tarot, like it seems like they must serve the same purpose, but the tarot, like it's not like you can quickly draw the devil card into your soup, because like, it's too,
Yeah.
it's like a more instructional thing of like your cultural archetypes,
Yeah.
or, like like I'm enjoying studying it because it's like putting into perspective, like a real, it's like a visual means and a, symbolic means of, um, examining the way like relationships work. So I
Yeah.
think I can see all right, I think I can see the point of runes then, where it's like, here's a thing. And like, I guess like,
Yeah.
I guess a skilled, I guess like a skilled occultist who really knows like a hermeticist, would just draw like the Jewish symbol or whatever into, and maybe consider that
Yeah.
a rune of equal.
Yeah. So different cultures, every different culture interprets the archetypes um, in different ways. So, but in essence, it's all quite similar.
Yeah.
But from what I've been learning is that it's like, so you've got form and structure, and you've got these archetypes, and then you've got the energy which the archetypes flow through, sort of thing. And then events, like different, so archetypes can be whole events. It can be the character in the scene of the event. Also they can be like, so they can be individual characters, they can be characters in a setting, they can be how different characters relate. And yeah, so it's like all these different sort of associations. I'm still learning more, but and it's like, it's got to do with the wheel, you know, so the wheel of fate and it's turning around, whatever. But essentially, one of the main things too is like the philosophy and like the belief structures around these archetypes is also how we'll perceive and identify the world and experience the world. And so that's another type of tower moment, is when your individual spirit and spirituality, your archetype doesn't match up with the overlaying archetype of the current system, societal point of view. So it's like two perspectives clashing, right?
So yeah, if your understanding then doesn't line up with the cultural understanding, then if you have a crashing of a perspective, it's going to be either yours or the society's. Is that what you mean? So like there's two, then in that case, the tower isn't always, I guess either way, it is your own model that's being destroyed, whether it's your model of culture or your model of yourself.
Yeah.
One's gonna go. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Or
think
they both go.
Yeah. So it's like two different sort of wills are crashing together, you know? And so it's like, so I was looking at Mark Zuckerberg. He's starting this thing called Meta, where it's virtual reality. So it's like
yeah, it's like, so I'm excited, but it's like, it's also like the worst.
Well, it's funny to me because his logo looks like a ball bag, and I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you just have a nutsack for logo?
Oh, see, I was like, oh man, he stole the infinity symbol, that asshole. Like,
yeah. Well,
so it's a better way to think of it, as a ball sack.
Yeah, that's where the infinity symbol is. It's your nutsack anyway. That's
all
the creativity reincarnates from.
Oh, good. That thing is worth something more than I thought then. All right.
Yeah. That's the magic one there. So like, it's just how you interpret. So it's how you interpret and perceive the world, right? And so when you sort of like, so me at my point, I'm creating my own meanings from my intuition about the whole world in conjunction with nature, right? So rather than, so it's when the meanings that were given to me about the world. So, this is how you move in this world.
What about culture? You say, for me, it's you. I mean, it seems like a trinity there: nature, culture, and self and individual. Yeah,
because I don't have a culture. Like, I've never felt like I had a culture. Because I grew up in so many different places. I never had one place to settle. I was like always in so much chaos until now. So I never felt like, I felt like I just had to fit in here.
Right. But I mean, well, and by culture, I don't even necessarily mean like nationalism.
I know what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, because like in Fiji, yes, there was like some cultural things there, but like even when I was in Fiji, they would call me,
Right.
because I'm half, like, well, half caste or whatever. I'm a new prototype of human. So
Yeah. And
um
like, I mean, like the Buddha said, like there's or maybe it wasn't the Buddha, one of the other old like masters, that they said that like living in a different country clears up 1,000 years of karma.
mm,
And I
yeah,
think that there's a sense to that. It's like, oh, like at least you see whether you know, whether you absorb or adapt or identify or not, like there are a lot of things that you see, like, oh, if this is that way here, that means that like it was only that way. I thought it was just that way, but it was only that way over there. It's not that way
yeah,
over here. And the
yeah,
more, I think the more you can process that like all things, all relations and identities, even good and bad, yeah, even ideas of like wealth, and yeah, they really
yeah,
are all like given to you by your culture. And when you see another one, even if it's only 25% different, you still like, oh, that's a slippery slope if you
yeah.
feel if
Because
you feel
well,
like going down it.
I was thinking about it this morning actually, and I've always had this like sort of thought system is like, you know, when the colonialists came to Australia or any other country, you know, they came and said, oh, look at these like disgusting savages and all these things, right? They don't have, they're not using the resources, and they're not da 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 because they're greedy, right? So,
Mm,
but like the cultures that were living there were living a different type of way with nature, right?
yeah,
And so what they've done is they've come and superimposed, like, we've got all of these material things and look how great we look, and the boats we built and all this other stuff. But if their society was so good, why'd they have to like, like leave their own country, like if it was so good, like
right. There, you
why'd
wouldn't have
they,
felt a need for expansion.
and going off to
Yeah,
exploit like and steal resources from elsewhere,
yeah. I mean,
because
it's like, I mean, even like, because those are all more, like to them, stealing the resources and exploiting the people wasn't a bad thing, it was a good thing.
yeah,
So even logically, I mean, like, I agree that it is a bad thing. I'm not like
yeah,
colonial's mindset, but even the fact, like you said, like if their way was perfect, they wouldn't have left.
yeah,
It's like it's like anyone who comes to study Buddha, like anyone who comes to a monastery to study Buddhism deserves 20 slaps with a stick. It's like, by leaving, by definition, by being here, by leaving, you admitted that like you were unsatisfied. It's an
yeah.
admittance of desire, which is an admittance of unsatisfactory, which is like
There's good reasoning there in Buddhism, you see.
yeah, yeah, yep,
Well, because that's, yeah, because like you look at it, it's like uh if your culture, like, because if you look at the indigenous people here, like, or anywhere around the world, they had nations there for thousands of years, and yeah, they might have had skirmishes here or there, but on a whole it was all quite peaceful, and they had everything, they were all self-sufficient,
yeah,
and their philosophies were all based around nature. Whereas the philosophies that are in the West are all based on the mind, and the
mm,
mind is greedy,
yeah,
and
yes, yeah.
yeah, and it's,
It persists by expansion.
yes,
Essentially,
I have to keep expanding. I need more knowledge. I need more stuff. I need more da da
yeah.
da.
It's like capitalism is the perfect like microcosm, macrocosm, whatever it is, of
Yeah.
like of that trait of the mind. It's just like infinite. It has to have infinite growth.
Yes.
and that like is the sickness in itself, like
because
the
yeah,
desire for infinite growth. Like you don't colonize a country because you have the superior because you have the superior civilization. Like you had the need to colonize it because you had inferior mindset in the first place.
yes. Oh man,
Yeah,
that's
like it's born out of like it's strictly born out of insecurity. It's I think that's the problem we have with authority too. Like there's so many times where people tell me what to do. I'm like, you're only telling me to do this because like it seems obvious to me that you know that like you're attached to the attention of creating something, and I'm the easiest tool to make you create this mad, but like you didn't even think it through, like
yes, because that they're attached to the sickness, right? But what
yeah.
happens is when they meet people like us, we give them tower moments.
Yeah. It sucks
This
though. I
kind,
don't it sucks to give people taro because they don't thank you for it.
yeah.
It's like I just feel guilty afterward. Then you just like then there's all these problems, and you're just like, all right,
I
my
don't.
bad. I shouldn't have said anything.
No, I don't anymore. That's
Yeah.
where you have to understand is like you are the medicine to the sickness. You're the medicine. So by giving them a tower moment, you're giving them medicine. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but
Mm,
it's better off in the long run for them
of course,
because you're
it's
not
always
doing
like,
anything.
yeah, it's always
Because
like
you're not doing anything wrong. You're just sticking to your boundaries, going like, "Hey, that's not right. I can see right through you." People don't like that when you can see right through them because it
mm,
shows that their lack of intelligence.
mm,
All these things. So
yeah. I mean,
that's why
and
you're.
half the time I'm very wrong in the first place too. So it's always like, always afterwards, I'm just like, oh man, I could have just skated through that and there would have been no incident. And so I don't know what it was in me that decided to just like throw a monkey wrench in this situation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, half the times I regret it. And then maybe way later down the line, I don't, who knows? But either way, it's like that's a personality trait I like definitely wrestle with because it's like I don't know sometimes like because sometimes it feels righteous,
Mm.
and if it feels righteous I think then like definitely uh yeah, sometimes it feels righteous and then it's definitely wrong, like,
Well, that's what the Taoists say that the righteous person will go up. So when no one listens to them, they'll like walk up to your face and like make
yeah,
people like submit to their will.
yeah,
Uh, but I feel like this is a clash with the monotheism. My personal philosophy and worldview clashes
mm,
with monotheism because monotheism, uh, the deities that you create, right? The deities that you create or the archetypes that you create have an impact on how we function together in societies. Now, with a system that only venerates men, it's incomplete, it's unbalanced. So because
well,
what
isn't the point of monotheism not to venerate men because men are individuals?
yeah, but so like the god is a man, and so that's the driving force.
Mm. Well,
So it's not that it's not there. So like, because you've got the Holy Ghost, which is representative of the feminine. This is in the exoteric.
right,
Like, depends if we're looking at esoteric or
yes,
exoteric. Because
yes,
exoteric,
exoterically it is very much like God's a dude.
yeah,
Yeah, or
our
like
Father,
it's a entity
yeah, our
that
Father in heaven. Da da
that
da.
therefore has impact on you. Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
exoteric.
because they're all like so. These things they're like software. So
Yes,
religions, philosophies, they're like software.
yeah,
And our body and our fresh mind is like a blank slate, and so society can imprint software into you, right? And so your thoughts, your thought
yeah,
processes, all these different things are affected by the software of the culture around you. If you like, depending on how much you want to take from the outside world, or how much you want to just listen to your inner world.
yeah.
And this is where the tower moment happened for me, because I don't know if it was just like always meant to happen this way, like divine timing, you know, it was always set for my path, or, you know, fate changed, or I don't know. There's so many different things. But I definitely had a tower where moment where it's like,
Mhm.
because I was reading into the mystery cults of Dionysus or Bacchus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I really vibe with that guy because that was one of the first, because like the one of the first major awakening points was like, hey, I went, the world put me through a initiation, like because I had so many, like, you know, I was practicing in Golden Dawn, and there they do you know, ceremonial initiations and
Mhm.
magic and stuff like that. And I realized when I was going through these events, I was like, hey, this is like an initiation, but it's the world's doing it.
What do you mean by the world's doing it?
Like the world's coming together with these people for me
These
to go through an initiation.
right. Okay.
So the
Because that
world,
whole that thought form had to be built for it to be whatever realized, cognated now for you at this moment. That in that
yeah.
sort of sense. Okay.
Well, so it's like I was with these three women, and so like what happened was one of the main things that happened was
Oh, did you partake in this in like a group setting, like an initiation in a group?
yeah, but it wasn't. It's because they were unconscious. It was only me that I understood what was going on. Like
Mm,
only I understood what was going on.
They're not like, hey, come on, we're going to do a Golden Dawn thing. It was
No,
your
they're just
knowledge of the
normal.
Golden Dawn that was able to then splice those teachings
Yeah, I was
into
able to go like,
natural
hey,
happenings.
these people are
Uh,
representing, these people are representing the characters of the fates. You
yeah.
know, I'm the initiate inside of this event. They don't know, they're, because their bodies are the vessels, but they're still in their smaller minds. They don't understand, they don't realize that, like they don't realize that this is all tying together for me to go through an initiation.
Mm, right. Because the path, yeah, 'cause that's part of your path.
Yeah. And so I started having all of these experiences of going through these initiations with the world, like through these events.
Yeah.
Um, because like the symbols, the way people act and stuff like that, you know, I was like, oh shit, you know, it's going. But anyway, I was
Yeah.
reading the Dionysus thing, and like I was looking back to Socrates and Plato and all these things. And it really goes like in the Western frame of mind, it's really when things really started going bad when monotheism started coming in. Like um because there's not much balance in monotheism, because in this reality, in this real world, we've got men, we've got women, we've got children, we've got nature. But when you've just got a mental logic driven, you know, when it's all about the mental world and the mind, it's always about expansion,
Yeah.
and you're dismissing the body, you're, you know, and its faculties and like, and the power of the body. And this is where the Shamash and the Tiamat sort of thing comes into balance and into play.
And it's like, I mean, I think, you know, yeah, I've always like grown up very anti-religious, right? Like, you know,
Mm,
when I was like, whatever, 19, 20 years old, I was like, oh my God, you know, just from growing up in, you know, in America with you know, where the monotheism of, you know, American Christianity is like predominant, the trains of thought.
mm,
Or like reading things like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Christopher Hitchens and stuff, being like, oh my God, yeah, this stuff is like totally fucking stupid. Oh my, like, but it was the level to where I thought it was stupid was very shallow. So lately, after, you know, um, cutting my teeth then on Buddhism, like I kind of coming to a concept of non-duality. It's like I've been trying to give these old teachings of Western traditions the benefit of the doubt of like, oh, like monotheism doesn't mean that there's just like a guy who's a boss. it's really just our linguistic way, but we don't have a good language for it. Just like English language is very subject object oriented. You can't even say something like "it was fun" without having an object and a subject. In other languages, you can just totally do that. You can just be like, "the fun was,"
Mm.
but so I've been trying to think of it that way, like, all right, so monotheism, ultimately they're just trying to speak of non-duality, because whatever, looking at the, like, researching the Kabbalah has helped me kind of understand that, everything is a splitting of a process that includes duality, right? Like, duality is included in reality. But yeah, I don't know where, so esoterically, like, you might make a case for it, like, I think, like, if you're like a hermeticist, if you're like one of those Franciscan monks, if you're well, I forget his name, but you're at like the 7-story mountain, and like, it exists, but you have to go far out of your way, far out of the way it's presented in your culture, far out of the way it's presented in your language, even, to understand these monotheistic religions, like, as how I think they were intended, you know. Yeah, it's very much lost. And in fact, like, there's dude, what do you think about, have you ever heard of this term, the stream enterer? Like, they talk about it in Buddhism. So they talk about, like, having a moment of stream entry. And this definitely must be put in the Western language. Like, this must definitely be like a tower moment. So they say, like, all right, there's a moment of stream entry.
Mm.
And like, up until that point, this is something that you need to work through, like, logically. Um, you know, and Buddha is full of these logical recourses, right? Like, these lists, these paths, like we were talking about last time, the causal chain. But they're like, once you have a taste of deathlessness, then you have become like a stream enterer. And at that point, you have like a verified conviction of a path.
Yeah.
So, and then after this point, I kind of want to read a little bit, because they're talking about just what you were like about monotheism. They say, all right, several passages emphasize that the experience of stream entry reinforces one's conviction that the true Dharma is fully expressed only in the Buddha's teachings. This point will come as a surprise to many people who are aware of Buddha's long history of tolerance towards other religions, and who assume that the enlightened attitude toward alternative teachings is to endorse the statement that many roads lead to the top of the mountain. This
Hey,
assumption,
I said
though,
that.
yeah, this assumption, though, is based on a confusion between tolerance and endorsement. As we have already noted from the stream winners, now they're not talking about stream entry, they're talking about stream winning. I'd never heard this term before. And
Yeah.
this makes me laugh. Like, the stream winner, like, I'm imagining a little kid on a podium. It seems a little self.
Hey, man, I got my flag up there now.
Yeah, I
Over the
mean,
top of
the
the
stream
mountain.
winner, like that, like, nothing sounds more like least Buddhist to me than that term, but I think it's cute. And so, anyways, as we have already noted, from the stream winner's point of view, the Noble Eightfold Path is the ideal expression of the way to awakening. To endorse any other path to the same goal would be to conceive that the Noble Eightfold Path either lacks something essential or contains something superfluous. The Buddha is quoted as saying that any other supposed path to awakening would by definition be wrong, right? Wrong view, wrong resolve, wrong speech, etc. To try to get results from such a path, he says, would be like trying to squeeze sesame oil out of gravel or to churn butter out of water. So he did not deny that other teachings advocating virtue and concentration can lead to states of great peace or to rebirth in higher heavens. But if one views those attainments as equivalent to unbinding, one is suffering from wrong view. And to hold that wrong view puts the total release to be found with unbinding beyond reach. And like, that's kind of a like with these monotheistic things, as long as there's like because they don't preach non-self when it comes down to it. If you're like in a monotheistic religion, they don't preach, they don't preach no self. None of them do. They might say everything, is quantumly bound together and it's all a uniform manifold. And this is something you can become aware of. Like, and then if you become aware of it, you can be your own God and make your own world. Like even that, like they all lead to kind of a phenomenological, like prize. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, it was just last night that we were reading this and it made me think about that. It's like, even if you give them the most generous point of view, like they do all like promise a prize, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like enlightenment, like, has to be practical here in the, like,
Right.
you have to get some fucking benefit from it. Otherwise,
Right.
for me, there's no point in praying to a Buddha and praying to anyone and praying or like doing anything unless you're going to get a better way of being here while you're here on this planet and for the people that are going to come here afterwards.
Mm.
It has to be, you have to leave this place better.
Yeah.
You can't just like keep leaving a legacy of like continuous slaughter or disharmony or disease. And
Yeah. Like abomination is self-perpetuating, no
yeah,
matter what it is. Like, is nuclear war, like something that's abominable is inherently so, and everyone understands it so.
yeah.
And it's
The thing
only
is,
done because it's been done, so it can be done. So you better do it first,
yeah. But I feel it's just with with um with people where if you're like, I guess it's like, if you're, I don't know if like some people are just run exoterically and other people are more internal, or like if you can reach the path, to the top of the mountain through exoteric work, without any internal work or anything like this. But like, I was talking to Mr. Gifts Within, and he's like, I've gotten to the point where I know so much, like, and it can just keep going,
Right.
but I've hit a wall,
Right.
and this is what happens with the monotheistic system, is like it traps people in your minds. And so for me, stories are very potent forms of projecting worldviews. So if you've got a book that's a story that's in the system, in the culture, so like the religion of the culture, let's say it's monotheism, for me, I'm just looking at this a very objective way. Like, I've got no feelings either way.
Mm.
I just dislike that. I just dislike that uh, it's not balanced in terms of taking care of nature and like taking care of vulnerable and stuff like other people and this type of thing. But with the monotheism, if it's, so for me, the father represents your mind, right? The father represents your mind. So
Mm.
this is an archetype, right? This is an archetypal thing. So the father represents your mind. The mother represents your body, and the child represents your heart, right? Three
Mm.
different energetic centers. Now, the stories in the monotheistic culture, just take Christianity because it's the most well-known, is you've got this father that ditched his son, sent him to earth. He is very vengeful. He's not a very nice guy. This, like, in a lot of the Old Testament, right? So people like, oh, we can just brush over the Old Testament. No, because these stories become part of your operating system. So imagine that we are artificial intelligence. We are the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. And the
Yep. Fair enough.
stories that make up your reality, right, and the faith systems are installed into your operating software, right? So our body, we can think from different ways. We can be in this world in different ways in this reality, right? And it's all based on the operating software that's, you know, we've got. So we've got internal software, right? That
Mm.
we get from, let's say, like bloodlines or whatever. So we get from the energies, the gifts that we get from astrologically and all these things, right? So we've got these archetypal gifts that we've been given, so that make up our personality. So, you know, I've got a lot of like placements for wisdom and spirituality and the occult. And I don't know why, I've always loved that, but I never thought that that was a path in this society, right?
Right. Yep.
So but now I am being from a different way. So like with Taoism, it's all about the mother, right? The mother represents your body and your instincts. So it values being in this world through your body and your instincts rather than the mind. That's
Ah,
why, so that's why they put Buddhism, because the Buddhism is still solar. It's a solar path, right? Soul is still all about the mind.
I see the like cultural yin yang popping up again between like
Yeah,
the Occident and the Orient.
yeah. So this is where it's like, so it's about finding a way to function in this world, right? That works for you. Now, because you've got the software, so this is why I renounced all other fades, like, and I took up Taoism. It doesn't make you take any like oaths, and it's got nothing, it's actually got no negative connotations in the Tao. Like there's no repercussions besides like, if you're a violent person, you're going to end up having an unnatural violent death, like, or an unnatural death. That's the only
Mm,
one basis of the Tao, right?
right.
Is that if you choose violence, then you enjoy slaughtering men. And so you're going to end up having an unnatural short life if you keep following that path, right?
Right. Yeah. Because you need to water your own field.
Yeah. So it's
Makes sense.
and
Yeah.
so now I'm moving from a space of um like, it feels like my consciousness is like outside my body. Like it's really weird. It's like the whole room, like this room is a reflection of my consciousness. And then also the outside world too is also like an interrelationship between like a whole
How does
consciousness in
your
this.
awareness does it feel like it flips or like it spit like
Because before, let's say,
um
for example, before I used to always have thoughts in my mind, and also used to have thoughts that were like always
yep.
questioning me, or like always, I
Oh
was
yeah.
always in battle in my mind all
Oh
the
yeah,
time.
there. Yep, that's where I'm at. I feel you. I'm picking
Yeah,
up
it's
what you're
like,
putting down.
yeah, it's like always like a heavy sense, like a heavy sense of like, just like every time I would go to make a decision, I'd get attacked, like in my own
Yes,
mind,
yes, that's my
right?
life. Yeah.
And I was like, and then like practicing a lot of magic and then looking up a whole bunch of things, I was like, oh shit, it's like a daemon. So a daemon is like supposed to be like a mental tutor, right? It's like,
Mm,
but it's how you view, it's like how you view the world and how you view the stories, the gods and the deities and stuff like this, da 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 da. Right? So Taoism puts you as the sovereign, right? And gets
mm.
you to move back into being heart-centered. But then you have to have like a battle between your mind, and it'll play out in your real life. Because once you go on this path, right, your mind ceases, your mind stops attacking you. And you, because like, so now I've just got like a whole bunch of female deities. So,
Mm.
and a lot of philosophers or wisdom people, they all follow the feminine path. And it's so gentle. All my thoughts are gentle now. They're like loving and caring and kind, and like they just support my decisions. there's,
Mm.
there's no internal battle. There's no internal battle. And then, but so what happens is it projects it out there, because then now I've got boundaries, and I'm like, no, these are my thoughts. And
So when you say I have boundaries, you mean your mind has boundaries?
yeah, my mind's got boundaries now, because I feel that with the mono, because I was raised and grew up in Christianity. And it
So, like
wasn't until
strongly or
yeah,
you know,
like
just in
up
the soup
until
of
strongly up until I was about 13. Yeah. But
mm,
that's all your formative years,
yeah,
that's,
yes.
and so that's where all the software's been installed for me anyway. And because like, getting baptized, all these things, they're all rituals. Now in the Tao, it says ritual is the lowest form of faith. So like,
Oh,
right, because like planning to do rituals all the time to get a certain outcome is lacking faith, because you don't have faith in yourself and the actual Tao, in the whole universe of things.
right. You're right. You're like, it's like you're dependent on your sandcastles that you're building every Sunday.
The tower that you've got, yeah, and it's all happens in all the daily rituals that you have. And so like, that's why it says doing nothing on purpose. So you got all these stories where Buddha just sat for 30 days, or like, these monks or Zen
Yeah.
masters or whatever just did nothing, you know.
I mean, and that's like, dude, that's so tricky. That's the like that must be the fucking knife's edge that they talk about. Yeah, because even meditation, we talk about, you talk about with Buddhists, you talk about like when you're meditating, you can't just, I mean, you can sit down and you can say, I need to sit down every day at 7 a.m. and make a habit of it so that I don't do it.
Mm,
Right. So that I don't have to, like, it's not this battle of will. You make it a habit so that you can do it easily and then you can truly meditate. But on the other hand, to get yourself to do that, honestly, you sort of need to make a ritual of it, which is, on the same token, by making a ritual of it, you're needing yourself to have like a goal for you're doing nothing. You're not doing, as soon as you ritualize it and ink it into your calendar, you're not just doing nothing for the sake of nothing.
mm.
You're at that point, you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. I have 7 to 7:20 a.m. blocked out. I'm going to meditate and it's going to be tight. And I'm going to contemplate the teachings and I'm going to think about the Eightfold Path,
So
and I'm going to venerate Buddha, and it's going to do these things, and it's going to like lead me
yeah,
to
it's going to do this and
freedom.
this and this.
But
But
like,
what you're happening is you're not allowing life
you've
in.
already, yeah,
You're not allowing the power of life to come in,
right.
because you're filling up all the spaces.
So it's like you can't do nothing, but you can't do something either.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a good example of Wu Wei is what we did today.
Mm,
Hey man, Saturday
yeah,
morning, I got a new mic, right? How good do
yeah,
we feel? The whole process, right? That's Wu Wei. It's
yeah,
not planned. There's no ritual about it. We just
right.
sort of like, yeah, man, I'm keen. I'm gonna have some breakfast. Sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Not like I'm gonna talk to Senpai Grateful, and I'm gonna do this at exactly this time, and I plan it in my mind, and I'm gonna gain enlightenment. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You
So this is living. This is
yeah,
being alive
yeah,
for me. So
yeah.
mindfulness.
Cheers. Hey, me too.
Yeah.
What coincidence. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, the Tao is a lot like, I mean, Taoism's where it's at. I don't like
It's
that.
hard because dogma.
It's one of those things like Zen where it's like it's everything removed. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
sometimes like you can build things up, and there's like a lot of teachings in Buddhism and there's a lot of practices in Western occultism. And I might like study these symbols but like they're all constructions.
Yes.
But like Zen and Tao are always like no constructions. No, there's always like it's a good um like that's the shit that's contained in everything, I think.
Yeah.
And whenever I get like the most mixed up, like yeah,
It's because
that's always the place to go to, because there's nothing to debate, there's nothing to consider, there's nothing to gain, there's nothing to lose, there's nothing to
yeah, for me, this is where Taoism really came to, is like really following Taoism. Everyone, it's like you're talking a different language to people, because like even though
mm,
you're trying to express what you mean to normal everyday people in Western society, it's like they're like, what? what are you on about? What
Yeah,
are you
you're not
talking-
allowed to say, yeah, you can't. That's like, it's always like, what are you putting on me? Or what are you putting against me? And how do you expect me to measure that? Like I have a lot, I have a lot of friends that try talking to me and they're just like, well, what do you mean? Where is it? Where's the 2 + 2 = 4?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Life
Like,
isn't a math equation.
yeah. And like, I have one friend I talk a lot about things like this. And he's always just like, but that's not 2 + 2 = 4. That's the only true thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just a model,
That's a model.
to what? For what? I mean, that like, I know what you mean. Like, but to talk about it, you would like, if I show you 4 things in my hand, like that's the only actual 2 + 2 = 4. It's just to show someone 4 things and be like, do we want to agree that these are separate? Then, then you have 4. It has to be like the 4 has to be created on the spot. There's no inherent truth to that. There's no inherent.
Because I got to a point where I realized everything was actually senseless. Like nothing makes sense. You get to a point where nothing makes sense. You're like, holy shit, nothing actually makes sense.
Is
It's
that
all
liberating or is that?
it's liberating, but also like you're like, what the fuck is going on?
mm,
Yeah. Because then you because I was like reading this book and I was like, this fictional story is just all made up. But like I'm like, and then I'm looking at all books and all things like all of it's just made up
yeah.
to describe our experience being here.
Right.
And like
It's all created like, I'm just looking at infinitely created context to explain nothing.
surviving. Yeah, like so you've got this thing like so in the West, it's all about surviving, you get put in survival mode,
Yeah. Yes.
but for me, it's like I'm like, why should I be in survival mode? Like I've got absolute peace and harmony. I've got a roof over my head. I've, like, why? I've got absolute peace inside. There's no arguments happening on the inside. There's like, I was like, I've got food.
So before you, oh man, like that's the shit that I am not an enlightened person by any means. So like I'm always stuck in these, but one thing I can say is that I very much like appreciate these, like the poems of Ryokan. Have you ever heard of that old poet? It's one of the old Japanese poets, and he has this
I
poem.
love those guys, man.
He has this poem, and he's like sitting in my hut. He was a guy who just lived for like 50 years in this little wood hut on the side of this mountain, and the Buddhists, like people would kind of bring him rice every once in a while. He has a poem. It's like, the rain's dropping on the roof. I have half a bag of rice. Why should I worry about enlightenment?
Yeah.
He's just like, what on earth? Wonderful stuff.
But here,
yeah, because I spend like every moment of every day like trying to like calculate like what the fuck I should do to continue living. Like okay, I got to do this. I don't know. I need to study what I need to make. What I need to.
Well, we can do some practical, like, because you like magic. So like, I mean, if you wanted, we could work out a system together where you could just practice some practical things.
Yeah.
Because once you experience your power, then it's like, it starts snowballing from there. So we can do some, I can come up with some like practical things for you to move forward. But some stuff is like very crazy because it'll go against like what it goes against what you might believe in.
Yeah, lay it on me. That's why I'm finding value, despite like our talks on like, the shit talking I have against all like, Judeo-Christian, Judeo-Christian.
Well, because I looked up history, all Judeo-Christian stuff. It's like a forced thing, religion, to benefit
Yeah.
a select group of people. Because if I look at Rome, I went through history and I just look for repeating patterns, right?
Yeah.
And it starts in Egypt, right? These people come from the Caucasus Mountains, and then they start migrating into Egypt as refugees, right? Then they start
Yeah.
overpopulating, getting positions of power. And then once they've got the positions of power, they start introducing laws that go against the fabric or the grain of the way of the Egyptians. And then, so there was a 200 years of, like, they called it the worst years in Egyptian history, and it was in Upper Egypt, where they just like murdered the population, they stole all the resources. And then one of the guys, I think his name was Doza, finally rose up, kicked him out, like had a big war, kicked him out, because they're like, when they got in, they're like, oh yeah, they started trade routes with Phoenicians, with like all these people, because they wanted to be like, they want to be wealthy riches. So
Yeah.
finally they kicked him out, and then they went to Rome, and then then they
Yeah.
got to Rome, and then once Roman civilization came, because with Rome, then they started all these wars. And what's happening with the West now? They're warmongers, right? So they
Right.
started all the wars, but all the resources goes to all the wars, which leaves their internal self poor. So it's like, if you look at it from a single person perspective, right? They're a very insecure person on the inside, right? And
Right.
so they need to have a big force externally to feel safe. But in doing so, it creates the victim perpetrator dynamic, where they're going into other countries because they see them as a threat. When
Yeah.
when
You create your
those,
own poison every time you think you create your own strength.
yes.
Um,
So, but the downfall of Roman society was like a hyperinflation, and all of their resources were going to all the armies that were outside of their country. They had to, and so they went broke, and the internal population had civil wars and split up. And I was at this because what really boggled my mind was I went to this museum in Bribey Island, right? And so so you got Rome, you got Egypt, you got all these other places like Japan, China, and they're creating all of these beautiful works of art and silversmithing and steelsmithing and all these things. And then you've got Britain at the same area at the same time, and they're like only got sticks. And I was
yeah.
like, how did Britain? And so I was like, okay, after the fall of Rome, the same people migrated to Britain, right? To that area of Europe. And then they started there, and then they built up their population
We're
there. But
talking
then
after the fall of the Rome. We're talking like, whatever,
after Rome,
five,
yeah,
600, something like that. 600,
yeah,
900 AD. Okay.
after Rome. And so they went from Rome to Britain, or to that area, right? And then
Yeah.
they built up the kings and the queens and stuff like that. And then the whole process started again. And now we've got
Yep.
Rome 2.0 currently in the West,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean,
right?
very much. Yeah. We seem to be very obviously Rome 2.0.
Yeah, it's Rome 2.0. But Rome wasn't the greatest civilization. It was just one version. It was just one
Yeah.
version,
Their
a part
plumbing
of it.
was tight. I mean,
Plumbing's good. We got great plumbing,
yeah, there's a few things like that. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's that same train of thought we're talking about with bad bosses. It's just like there's this sort of like desire for domination
Yeah.
that's
But it's
born out
based
of
off
just
internal.
insecurity. It's all just like,
Yes.
it's also like disgustingly insecure to me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's
But
it. But they're the ones in the power. They're the ones in the power. So like you've got these people in power today, and they're just like these insecure little toddler boys,
yeah,
right?
yeah, every time. Yeah.
Right? They're just like these weak, insecure toddler boys. Like look at Trump, perfect example. And it's
Yeah.
all bluster and bluffing. So like they're they're not wise, they don't have intelligence, they're not good people, right? But
Yeah.
see, and so this is where I come to like spiritual philosophy and thing. It's like
I
the
mean, like the Tao Te Ching, right? It's like a perfect king. No one knows he was there, and they all say we did it ourselves.
yeah, but even with even before, like so even in Greek and stuff culture like that, it was farmers. So even in the Taoism, they say like he's like a
Yeah.
farmer, the sovereign's like a farmer. But all the greatest rulers of Rome and the ones that started it were farmers. They were just like simple
Yeah.
farmers, loved their family, worked the land, you know. they're the ones that help civilization. It's when the people that aren't the internally secure, wise person that's grounded, that only see the benefits, they only see the material, exoteric wealth, right?
Mm.
They want to come in and because use their fancy words. That's why in the Tao, it's like people that use the clever words, they're not truthful. So like clever words are never truthful. Truthful words are never clever, or or like beautiful.
Like meaning can be clever, but
yeah,
but words, yes, words can be like if you have a clever word, it's a mask for meaning.
yeah.
I mean, that being, but going back, you're like, I can help you with some sort of practices
Oh yeah,
that are
so
non-logical. And one thing is like, all right, so despite all of this, these like kind of practices of Western occultism do help me, because to me they're totally ludicrous, I should say.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like things like a banishing ritual, like something like a banishing ritual is it works like a rune. It's like rune. It's like when you were talking about covering the rune and you're cooking.
Yeah.
So like to me this is like a profound technology that's coming to my mind. Like,
yeah,
I have a ritual to banish thing, whether it's like a thought, whether it's a fear, whether it's a it's like I have a non-logical means now to interrupt the logic of fear. Because like fear is totally logical, even though it's
so
also
imagine that we're like, because it's like all about associations. It's how our mind associates things with other things, how it has relationships with things and other things, right? And then the feelings as well that go with that too. So like I kind of look at it like a circuit board, right? So the relationship we might have with someone is like a two-way. I think you said something really funny. It's like having two batteries and they're both egos on the other side. That was so good. But it's like so like say I'm having a relationship with someone, right? And so the energy that if you don't have good boundaries, if you don't have clever boundaries, or like if you don't have good, strong, healthy boundaries. And so for me, I've created my own spiritual boundaries, right? That work like an ecosystem.
Okay, what do you mean by like a spiritual boundary? Is that what you let out or what you let in?
So
what's out and in? I don't know.
So it keeps out negative influences, and it brings in positive influences. Yeah.
Do you at what extent do you value negative influences?
Well, I don't need like there were good teachers. There were good teachers at the time when I was like growing pains. But now I'm like, fuck, I don't need that shit. I just need blissful, good people, good experiences, to build a good dream. Because we're ultimately living in a dream reality. So I created so see my background here?
Yeah.
This is my version. These are my boundaries. This is my boundaries.
Oh. And move your body to the left. We got the phoenix on the bottom there.
Yeah, vermilion.
Okay.
Bird, yeah.
For any potential viewers, right? In the south, we have the vermilion, like we basically have the fire,
wood. So you got
water.
Wood,
oh yeah, it's different in these.
Yeah, it's wood like yang.
You want to say fire, water, earth, air.
Yeah, that's the Western model.
That's the Western model is fire.
That's Hermetic. That's the Hermetic model.
Yeah.
Then you've got other. With this one, it's a bit different. It still tracks with the planets. So you've got the vermilion bird is Mars. The dragon is Jupiter, wood. So spring as well.
Yes, spring. Seasons are easier for me than like physical elements.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's like this. It's like, so what they mean by energy. So like in spring, you look at all the trees and the grass and the flowers and the fruits and everything. They all start growing rapidly.
Yeah, they're coming
This,
out of rest. There's an amount of energy that's been
yes,
gathered out of
that's,
rest, and it corresponds with something like optimism and new
yeah, but it's
ideas
fresh.
and
Yeah, it's actually fresh
fresh.
energy from the new
Yes.
season. So that is Jupiter energy. That is spring energy,
Mm.
right?
Oh yes.
So that's how you can classify. So like in magical workings, it's okay, all right, I want to associate, okay, so this savings account or this bank account or whatever, or this investment fund, right?
Mm.
It's got a stream, but let me attach some Jupiter, like, so you could create a sigil or whatever, or name it in dedication to a Jupiterian deity or spirit. Okay, I want to that for it to increase,
Mm.
right? But this is where faith comes
Yes.
in, and this is where it starts small. So you have to start. So once you're on the path of walking the unknown, or the the path of um the void, right? Is you have to build faith up in your own power,
Mm.
and also the power and trust in the universe that what your magical science is will come to reality. And so this is where looking things at relationship based, so having a relationship with, so and connecting with the different planets, and then like understanding how they function in this reality, then your magic will work a little bit stronger, right? So wood, and then up here is water or Mercury, because Mercury is the closest to water. And then you've got Venus or metal, and then you've got,
Metal is See, that seems weird to me. It seems like metal would be a Mars sort of concept, because it's like a hardening, right? Like it's the point where something has come to um the point where something has come to like a more hardened thing, to the extreme of severity. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
How
Well,
does
they
I don't
say, well,
understand
they
how
say
metal.
fire. Well, no, because fire can melt metal
Mm.
into a liquid.
So
Right?
with Venus energy, Venus, and because like I said, I'm very knowledgeable on planetary things. That's like something
Yeah.
I'm like broadly, checking out the landscape and trying to make sense of. So like, which is, why the Kabbalah helps again. Like I'm enjoying that sort of thing, that it's like,
Mm.
okay, I can have a map. I can help me wrap my head around it. So like Venus energy is generally the epitome of like, right, female concept, love. I would think that would correspond with softness, with
Yeah, but at the same time, women are the most vicious.
yes, yes. But that wouldn't be the Venus energy. That would be like the
No,
Baina, right?
that's Venus. That's
Of the
Venus. Like,
vicious. That's Venus. Okay.
yeah, well, if you look at a cat, cats are usually associated with Venus. Like, so if you look at all deities, the red planet or the Venusian planet, usually you'll see cats as, so like Freya, uh, what other goddesses are there? Like Isis with Bastet and stuff like that. Cats are associated with
Okay.
Venus. But if you look at cats,
Yes.
right, they're very affectionate if they like you, right? They're very affectionate, or
Yes.
they can be cold.
Yes.
Like,
I'm looking. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cats.
or and they could be like, or they could be like dead killers, like they'll just hunt something in silence. Watch, you watch cats. So
Yeah. They're like this purely kind of
instinctual.
instinctual. They live very much on this uh ethereal realm of like
Yeah, they're like, they just do what benefits them, really. So like
mm,
they're amazing creatures. I like them
yeah,
because if they like you, they like you. If they don't, haha.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. And then you've got water or Mercury, and then the middle is Saturn or Earth. So,
Mm,
but this is the associations that they created for their individual. The original, one of the original sovereigns of China, use the bear in the center or the Big Dipper, and that's a common theme with a lot of other shamanism as well. So bears have a big thing to do with shamans and that type of stuff. But
Well, I always thought that I conceive Saturn energy as like the constricting energy, right? Like black, that's kind of a border of the unknown, and the border of an unknown of something is its restriction.
it's order and boundaries as well. It's
Like it would be like the walls of the tower.
Yes, it'd be the plans.
If you're in the tower, the
Yeah.
walls of the tower would be your Saturn.
Well, I actually think these four directions, they're the walls. They're the walls, right? The center would be, I guess, the material that
The sun.
binds them all together.
Yeah. That would be the sun center.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Saturn, they use Saturn with with earth and ordering,
Mm,
because Saturn's got the rings and like it's got the rings spinning around itself,
yeah.
and so it creates motion with all these.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too literally sometimes, which is why I'm trying to make these correspondences so I can like break out of my literal thinking. Right. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, the cat, I see the cat, the purple. Okay. That makes sense. The Venus. Yeah, it's just the add. Yeah, I don't have any kind of grasp on astrological shit yet. That's still intuitive, I should say. I don't have any kind of intuitive grasp on
yeah, that's it. It's just
astrological
building
things.
your intuition and like following your intuition. So
Yeah.
like, okay, like, because you could even draw a symbol of Venus, put in your room,
Yeah.
right? And then go, I would like to have brought to my awareness
Mm.
lessons or learnings pertaining to Venus.
Yeah.
And then, but this is where you have to have a good awareness of what's in your environment.
Ooh. All right. Wait, let me pause this.
Yeah.
And go to the bathroom. And then we'll go back to 30 minutes ago.
Okay.
And you can tell me whatever some of these exercises you recommend for yeah, beautiful.
All right. Sounds good.
Pause them. Oh, in progress.
In progress.
I like those robot voices.
Yeah. So some practices. I feel like, do you keep a journal?
I mean, it's very loose. I've tried, and then I found it pointless, and then I stopped. And I kind of like, now I'm keeping track of just like what rituals I do every day.
Yeah.
In like the most, it's like whatever. Okay, it's invisible to the camera, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's loose. I tried like dream journals, but I have like 15 dreams a night, and if I try to keep a dream journal, I spend like, it's like 2 hours. It's like 2 hours that I'm writing every night. Oh, I can see. Oh, it's a raccoon. Oh, we cut off again. God damn it. Shit. I should start recording it too. Okay, where you froze before I cut off again. You were holding up a picture of a raccoon, and that's where it all froze. Yeah. Just you.
So
now we got an otter.
Yeah, I love it's my
They're
screen screensaver. I love otters, man. They're so beautiful.
I do too. I subscribe to a subreddit called Otter GIFs. It's just GIFs of otters.
I need to subscribe to that.
And they're like, yeah, it's tight. I don't go on Reddit much. When I do, it's like, there's an otter GIF.
Yeah.
Hell
I
yeah.
just like, or even when they're holding hands or like they're just so amazing. Um,
Yeah.
so what I do is I just voice record my dreams. So I'll wake up, I'll just put the recorder on, record what I need to say, and then go back to sleep. And then
Mhm.
that way I've just got recordings there of my thing, and I can write them later because after if I record it and then I listen to it, I get dream recognition. Like
Oh.
they come up, I can remember them. And then like also more like stories and stuff, like learnings will come up internally from doing that. Um,
Mm.
because
Yeah,
coming straight from it's
yeah,
coming
that
straight
might
from the
be a good
unconscious.
idea. Because I mean, I don't know if this is normal or not. I assume it's not. Most people talk about like not remembering their dreams. I can't
Mm.
imagine. Um, like as I go to sleep, I lay there in bed, I'm like laying there for a long time, like, okay, it's not until I calm down, the things start fading. Then I'm like, just looking at black, my eyes are closed. I'm just like sitting there, I'm staring at black. Then I kind of like, then my thoughts wander. And if I don't let them wander, I just stay awake. You
Mm.
know what I mean? If I don't let them
Mm.
wander, then they come back and I'm like, okay, then I'm actually thinking. I'm actively thinking if my thoughts don't wander. But if they wander, then it's like I'm looking at black, and then the black is like trippy, and then it kind of like, and then you get removed from reality. Do you know when your
Yeah,
thoughts really, when you're just like, now all of a sudden you like go into a very imaginary place. Like it goes beyond just like thinking about what you should do tomorrow to like to very, I just like kind of watch it fade to very abstract thought, and then it visualizes, and then I'm in a dream, and I don't know, and then
yeah,
once I'm in a dream, I'm just in the dream. It's not like I
yeah,
remember that I'm Daniel in bed dreaming. That's
yeah,
not like, it's like I lucid dream, but my lucid dreaming doesn't involve the context of my actual life,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it'll be like in our first episode, right? I was talking about like seeing the painting on the wall. I'm like, this painting's changing. This shit's totally incoherent. I'm like, this just isn't like, it just isn't holding up. It's not like
yeah,
I'm saying this isn't holding up in context to me living in the house that I know, with the life I know, with the people I know. It's not like it's just straight up kind,
yeah,
it's just, I can just tell it's imaginary, not that I know who I am, in waking life or whatever. So if I try to record a dream, it's just, so I fade into dream, and then every time I wake up, it's from a dream.
yeah, yeah,
I fade into dream, and then I wake up straight up I'll be in the dream. I'll just be like, oh, now I realize this is all a thought form. And I'm now aware of like, fadingly aware of like my hand on my cheek on my pillow,
yeah,
and then sometimes I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm going back, and I'll go back into the dream. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't go back, I'm just awake now, shit.
yeah.
So I don't really like have like a lapse. Do you know what I mean? I don't ever
Yeah.
like lapse into just uh
I always wake up from dreams too. Like
yeah, they're
I,
always interrupted. It's always an interruption of sorts,
yeah, you for me, it's like some real good part's about to happen or something like that. And then you wake up and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
never like, I never just wake up from nothingness. I never just
mm,
wake up from like, I'm never just born in the morning. You know what I mean? It's always like a
continuation of the journey. So that I started the process of just voice recording them straight away because I'm still half in that
yeah.
half sleep state.
Yeah, that sounds like a great, because it's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Flip on the light, take out my thing,
Yeah,
start
because I
writing, and I'm just
tried
like,
doing
oh,
that
I
and that
hate.
was
It's terrible. It's fucking
yeah,
terrible. I could do it forever. I could do it for 5 hours a night. It would. Okay, voice recording.
yeah.
Shit. Yeah, that sounds like a. Yeah, I'll give that a shot. Do you
It's
get
so much
any?
easier.
Do you get any benefit from going back? Because whenever I go back and read my dream journals, I'm like, why did I even fucking lose sleep over this? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
well,
It just.
because I realized that I have prophetic dreams. Like
Mm,
so my dreams become real life events that happen either in my life or around the world. Like I dreamt about earthquakes happening and then they happened. Like I dreamt about the tsunami that happened in Bali. So I just dream about things. I dreamt about 2020.
Uh,
So yeah, so
I
like,
remember a dream you had
eh,
where you said you brought people onto a yin yang disc and it was rotating
yeah,
and going up.
into the, so I went all the way up into the sky, and I was like surrounded by darkness. And then there was, then there was like a piercing light that came out from the void. And then like, and then I was like one with that light.
I have some subconscious hope on that dream. So
Yeah. But another cool dream I had a long time ago was like, I was in the middle of space and there was a angel there with big wings and a book. And then he gave me the book and I was like reading from it. Then we went to this cave, and then on the other side of the cave, these giants came out.
Mm.
And then I started reading from this book, and then these ropes came out of the book and bound the giants and tied them up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
And I re
I don't
and I
know.
re
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
and I
it's
re yeah.
go ahead. Yeah,
I
sorry.
recently had another dream about a giant, where I was like, so this giant was like fighting with people I knew or whatever, and then I've like run up and I kicked it, and it got kicked out of these boundaries. It's like it was like a net, and it got kicked out of the net, and I was like, hey, there's a net there, a boundary. And then it like came running back in, and as it was running in, I was laughing at it, and I was like throwing these balls at its head, like they're like bouncing and they're like hitting in the face. And the giant was very dumb, like it was a very dumb giant. And then there was like these three people watching me like fight with this giant, but I was having a ball. It's like the giant was like fighting for its life, but or like, really trying to attack me, but I was just having a joke with it, like, just playing around. And it's like, ha, I got you, I bound your hands and feet. And then I was like, lol, whatever. And then I got up, and then I
There,
woke up.
yeah, the contextualization of, I mean, that's something I try to apply to normal life, right? Because I'll sometimes have absolutely mundane dreams that are totally terrifying. Do you know what I mean? You can be, everyone's had this experience. I don't know, you're at school and you have to take a test or whatever. And it's like, it's terrible. You wake up in a sweat, you're nervous, you're anxious. It's like, it's straight up a nightmare.
Yeah.
But the content of that nightmare was all, nothing was nightmarish about the content of the nightmare. Then you'll have a dream where maybe everything is terrifying, right? Like there's nothing more, like if there's, giants living, these things are nightmarish, but they can exist in the context of like fun.
Yeah.
And it's like the content, I kind of just noticed that like the content doesn't matter, only the framing matters. The content, like sometimes I'll have like like sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's like nightmarish content and it's a nightmare. And I haven't had one of those in a long time. But like, I mean, those are the worst, like you're running from an axe murder and the place is grisly and there's gore on the walls. And it's, I've had these like just fucking absolutely terrifying dreams, and all of it's nightmarish both ways through. But yeah, most of the times it's just one of the, it doesn't actually make sense. It's only
Yeah.
your framing of the nightmare that makes it a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing scary about a school death. There's nothing scary about my third grade teacher. And in fact, that would normally be the fondness, if someone were to recollect their fondness, it would be childhood things, innocent things, harmless things. Dreams are weird, man. I don't know how to approach them. I feel like they could quickly, I feel like they could quickly overwhelm a lot of my consciousness.
Yeah. They're very, very, very interesting for me, because that's why like Jung was interesting, because he talked about dreams and archetypes. Because if we look at giants were in a lot of old mythology and stories and
Were you younger
spiritualities.
when you had that dream that you were explaining with the giants? You're throwing the ball. Was that a dream?
No, that
when
was
you were
just like
younger?
last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I assumed that like giants would be a fixture in dreams of a child, right? Because everything looks so big to a child.
Yeah, no, it's
So,
literally like last week.
oh, oh yeah, you were like, I had a fun dream. Okay, huh?
So, yes, it's like
You have
it's
a
really
broader point of view again. Yeah,
yeah.
I have no giants in my dreams. I've eliminated. Okay, I see.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just that was our dream. But anyway, practices. Sorry. Um, so practice. So for me, it'd be like
Journal.
so you're journaling your rituals, right? So I would
Mhm.
say do a week where you don't do you try and do nothing, like no rituals,
Mm.
right? Where you just not do you just waking up, eating your food, try not to have any plans, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then just write like what's the predominant theme of your thoughts, and also what are the external events that happen, like everything from kicking your toe, or if that happens,
Mm.
to like what you experience from the internet, like, you know, anything that anything that, so like just whatever mundane thing, even whatever you're watching, you know, like what music you were listening to, what was the themes in the music, like if it's new music, if any new material comes in, or if just the whole week you just had the same sort of material
Yeah,
show up
yeah.
show up in your experience, because this is how you really know change is happening in your life, is because if everything's the same, you're not experiencing change.
Right, right.
And then after that week, then you would do experiments.
Okay. I mean, because the doing nothing is an experiment.
That it's so hard. It's so hard. You get used to it after a while though.
Yeah.
So it's just about following whatever you feel like doing. So not what you think about doing. It's like whatever you feel like doing first. So, you know, so
Yeah. Like, for example, you're like, you know what? For 1 week, I put it all down. I didn't do it, but then you journal afterwards. You're like, it's like, what I ended up doing was getting drunk and watching Seinfeld. Like, I mean, I assume that's basically how it's gonna, like, how that
well,
works
it
out.
could, because that's maybe
Yeah.
what your body needed, you know?
Yeah. And that itself is like, it's like, huh, that's where that went.
Yeah, just don't judge anything you'd feel like doing. Just don't judge it, because whatever you feel like doing is a medicine. So it's about not judging whatever the
Mm,
event or the outcome is, you know?
yeah. Doing. I mean, doing, it's always like where the tire meets the road, isn't it? Where the rubber meets the road. Um,
Yeah. So it's like, don't judge your thoughts, whatever thoughts you have, like just notice the theme, or if you had any prominent thoughts, just write them down, you know?
yeah,
Because you need to really gauge what's happening in your reality, in your bubble of reality,
right.
right? And you'll see the themes that are happening in your existence.
Yeah, removing outcomes. Removing outcomes is a very difficult
Oh boy, yes,
concept. It's a very difficult concept because, I mean, if I remove outcomes, I mean, you have to. We're back again to when I was talking about this, the Zen paradoxes earlier. It's like, why do you meditate? You can't meditate to meditate. If you meditate to meditate, you're not meditating. Like, it's like you have to put effort in until there's no effort. And
Yeah,
it's like, if you to remove outcomes, like to remove outcomes is just to give in to desires, maybe. but it's
Yes.
also, it's but like on the other hand, removing desires is the whole point in the first place, because desires are outcome oriented. I mean,
Lower desires, lower
lower
desires.
desires, yes.
So it's like you can have, so from my perspective, it's like you remove all associations and connotations from desires, from outcomes, from attachments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's meanings, there's all these meanings attached to the processes that you're doing. For me, enlightenment was removing all of those associations and attachments and stuff like, and rediscovering a higher not a higher version or whatever, just a more cultivated, refined experience of the processes and desires I have are divine, and they're here for a reason and purpose to make my life more divine and heavenly, right? In daily life.
Right.
But I had to like have no outcomes and just experience being, and like what was, because what'll happen is everything that's in your unconscious, in your body or whatever, it'll just start coming out. You'll just start doing all this weird shit, whatever, do whatever, but don't judge. Just accept everything that comes out of you, flows out. Accept it all. And you'll notice that also, like in the content, in the content
Mm.
that you see, even if you think you're randomly looking through YouTube stuff, you'll have unconscious biases towards like liking something, picking something over another.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry about that for now, but just jot down like what's going on in your reality. And so this is like what's flowing out of your body.
Mm.
Like if you're having like pressure in your mind from the arguments, write that down, express it all, then you'll have a picture of what's really happening in your garden, inside and outside of your garden.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, there seems to be like, it always comes down. God, but this like is me guilt tripping myself again. All right. So there seems to be things that come down to, I think like the way the Buddha puts it, it's like, all right, you can talk about free will. Does it exist? Does it not exist? Are you machinations? Are you this? Are you this? It becomes irrelevant because the end result of either of those points of view would be that action does not have purpose. Yet, everyone takes purposeful action. So, the matter of skillfulness, and like that, I think is like a fucking magical word, skillfulness. And he's like, so the matter, when it comes down to it, there's always a matter of skillfulness. So therefore, there's some kind of inner judge, right? That's meeting, that's examining conditions, action, and result of actions. So the fact that your results of your conditions, like do what you will, you're going to point towards the skillful action. Like the fact is that people get skillful at things. There are preferences to more skillful means of doing things. If you have an opinion, if you're a Christian and you think that if you're a Christian, you think that this Islamicist or this Buddhist is full of shit, it's because you don't think that they have a skillful interpretation of reality.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
by the very fact that you think this other person is not skillful in their in their interpretation, you are adapting a measure of skillfulness, which means that you're adapting a measure of judgment in the present moment of the circumstances.
Another thing that this will do is that inner judge and critic inside your mind, you'll be rebelling against that. That's another act.
That
that you
sounds
do.
great. That fucking sounds great.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I feel like I'm really caught up with that motherfucker. Like,
Yeah. Because you're going to
um,
be like, you're going to be telling him, hey, we're not judging. We're
yeah,
just we're just going to see what happens without anything. And, to be quite honest, what'll happen is you might get into some arguments and it might be heavy. Just, but,
mm,
but it might not happen either. But just write it down if it does and just be like,
mm,
just like,
yes,
just who was that? Like, why are they there?
yeah, yeah.
Why are they the boss?
If that boss is sitting around and he's waiting to judge something, the least you can do, bring it up so you can get the judgment out of the way. You'll know which way it falls.
And
It's
he's
like
not your boss.
it's like yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. But it's like there's no reason to remain passive aggressive about it forever.
Hmm.
Get it out and have the conversation with
Because
whatever it is. Yeah, yeah,
that's what I was like. I was like, why do I keep coming up against these people, right? Like the cobweb guy that you said.
oh
He's
yeah,
just
yeah,
he's just an external manifestation of the guy in your head.
yeah.
And that's what I realized. So
Wait,
it's
what do you mean by that? I mean,
because
okay, yeah,
so the situation was created like it's like a because that guy lives in your space in your head,
right,
then it'll be you'll have external interactions with him in different forms. So it's about showing the internal voice who the fuck's the boss. Like it's you, it's your heart, your feelings. Like what you feel like doing matters. Like, who you are matters. Like all the things that you love to do matters. And it's just him that's judging. Like why?
yeah.
um
Reflection, yeah, reflections of an internal voice. Either way,
yeah, so it's just about overcoming that guy and integrating him and going like, hey man, I love you, but relax, we're safe here, we got a beautiful home, let's
yeah.
just
I
see
mean,
what.
yeah. In the end, it was tight. He was like, today, go all around everywhere. Write me the list of all of the shit that you think is
Yeah,
overlooked and give it to me. And I was
yeah.
like, the day before I left, that's what I did. And I just like dumped this like notebook on his desk. It was like, so whatever. Like I'm not, yeah. He's just like, all right, go fucking go crazy and write all this down on a piece of paper, then give it to me then. And you're like, and that was nice. But yeah, I mean that supports that theory both ways. For him, what am I but like the fucking external manifestation of
Yeah,
this like insecurity of what he's telling people what to do and why.
yeah, it's like, so that because I was like, I always felt in my house like, man, I'm a boss, like I should be doing boss things, but why do I keep ending up with a fucking boss over my head, like
Yeah.
controlling me? It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
physical, it's like you're manifesting what's going on inside your ecosystem. So our internal ecosystem
yeah.
manifests outside. And with Dionysian or Bacchic sort of pathways, and even Taoist sort of pathways, it's about following bliss. But bliss has no
Mm.
room for judgment. It doesn't have any room for judgment.
Oh yeah, I lost the train on Dionysus.
Yeah, a Dionysus is just a reoccurring figure that happens. He's like, he's a reoccurring figure that comes, he's a Alan Watts, he's a Jesus, he's a
Yeah,
Terence McKenna. It's people like you and me that are just trying to go like, I've got this internal view of reality, and I know it's real, but like, how do I move forward? How do I bring that? How do I manifest that so that my reality feels good? Because I should be feeling good. Like, why am I 40 not feeling good? Or why am I
yeah,
35 not feeling good?
yeah. I have a good feeling, so why can't I feel good? Like, yeah, there's a.
Yeah.
It's like
So
there's
it's
an
like,
interference pattern there or something.
yeah. And that's So doing these practices is about removing or reintegrating that part that's sectioned off, because it's all part of your spirit. So it's just sectioned off, and it's just judging it's you created self-judging. So it's about amalgamating that, dissolving that, amalgamating it, and telling it, don't judge. We're going to do a whole week of non-judging. of just whatever happens, I'm okay with it, with no outcomes, and I'm just going to journal my journey.
All right.
And
all right, that's next up on my thing. I think we have like a 2.5 hour episode.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone not to watch the whole thing. So I wonder if I feel like I could talk for another 2, but
my brother, let's end it there. Let's just unpause it. Okay.
Oh, wait, yeah, I haven't paused. No, I'm recording.
Yeah, everybody like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, smash the like button.
Smash that like button, brother. All right, and then I hit the stop. All right, cheers.
Yeah.